Hello and welcome. You're watching UATV News with me, Ksenia Buhai. Let's start with the latest developments in Ukraine over the past week. The level of relations between Ukraine and the European Union is high now. However, in order to become a part of the EU, Ukraine should implement a number of reforms. In turn, Brussels is ready to continue supporting Kyiv, not only politically but also with practical help, assured the deputy head of the European Commission's Neighbourhood Policy Directorate, Katarina Maternova.
Relations and the depth of the relations and the extent of the relations between Ukraine and the EU is stronger than ever. We collaborate in a huge number of areas. Ukraine has a visa-free regime. I know during COVID it's been difficult, but it's been difficult even inside the EU. We have what is called a very deep trade relationship. And we work with Ukrainian authorities on a number of reform fields, as different as decentralization to public administration reform, judicial reform, energy sector reform. So I think the relations are extremely extensive and better than ever.
Stock and commodity markets will be developed in Ukraine. The Ukrainian government, together with the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, the American Chamber of Commerce and USAID project, signed a memorandum of understanding. How important is this document for Ukraine? Our journalists found out.
Signing of the memorandum is the first and important step towards the creation of the National Capital and Commodity Exchange. This will contribute to the development of the Ukrainian stock market. Thus, private companies and government agencies will be able to receive long-term funds to finance their projects.
Сьогоднішній меморандум – це, безумовно, нова сторінка в нашій економічній історії.
The memorandum is definitely a new page in our economic history. Our citizens will receive an opportunity to invest their resources, get new tools for savings. Businesses will get a long-term and cheaper resource as well. The state will get new jobs, increased investment, and a step towards a civilized world. Now the Ukrainian stock market is not working in full, provides great risks for the investors and does not attract foreign investors, economists say. According to the memorandum, foreign specialists will analyze the work of the market, correct mistakes and improve its infrastructure. We will gain access to the latest technologies, to financial resources. We will gain access to expert knowledge that will allow us to build appropriate sites in Ukraine according to the Western model. Together with the capital market, the performance of the commodity markets is also set to improve. For this, the parties have written a detailed plan for the next 3 years in the memorandum.
Ukrainians deserve the opportunity to invest, receive income and save money for the future. A very long way for us, but we believe in the result. We believe that we can do it together. When there is a political will, when there are those who are ready to make great efforts, then 100% will be the result.
They are sure in the government that creation of the National Exchange for Capital and Commodities Trading will help to uproot corruption, protect the rights of investors, improve the price formation of goods and create new jobs as well. Reported by Vadim Kramer and Vlada Tsurkan, UATV News.
Human rights violations, war crimes, property issues, environmental protection and cultural heritage in the occupied Crimea. All these problems will be studied and monitored by the expert group of the Crimean Platform. It includes representatives of public organizations and human rights activists. Scientists, analysts and international experts are also expected to participate in the project. The group will sum up the first results of its work at the end of July. The report will help inform the public about the real situation in the occupied peninsula on the eve of the International Summit of the Crimean Platform, which will be held in Kyiv on August 23rd. The expected result is that the topic of Crimea is more widely represented in foreign media. It is important for us to return Crimea to the global agenda and keep it there in the diplomatic dimension. First of all, we understand that the expert network can return Crimea to foreign media. To date, the country lacks legislation that would provide for monitoring of the effectiveness of sanctions, both Western and Ukrainian, which were imposed against individuals and legal entities located in Crimea or the Russian Federation. That is, this work of the Crimean Platform's expert network will not be for expert only, so to say. Josep Borrel, the High Representative of the European Union, will take part in the Crimean Platform summit together with the President of the European Council, Charles Michel. This was stated by Josep Borrel during the video conference within the UN Security Council.
Ukrainians have to regret that the situation in the country tends to be instrumentalized for political purposes here at the Security Council. To be clear, 6 years after all members of this Security Council unanimously, and I mean all members, unanimously supported the Minsk agreement, little, very little, has been done to implement them. Russia is a party to the conflict, and we count on it to take a constructive stance. And talking about constructive stance, I welcome President Zelensky's initiative to convene the Crimean Platform summit to take place this summer.
More and more Ukrainians consider Russia an aggressor country. These are the results of a sociological study conducted by the Razumkov Center together with the Democratic Initiatives Foundation. The number of those who sympathize with the people who remain in the territories uncontrolled by Ukraine has also increased. Experts are sure that such rates indicate that the Kremlin's efforts to divide people are not achieving their goal. Our correspondent will tell you more.
More than half of Ukrainians, 53.5%, define the situation in Donbas as Russia's armed aggression involving illegal armed groups.
The idea that this is Russian aggression is gaining ground in Ukrainian society, and over the past year and a half, the number of supporters has increased by about 8.9%. This is precisely the version, and this version has become more solid in public opinion, more widespread not only in the western and central macro regions, which are traditionally harsher in their assessments of events in Donbas, but this version of Russian aggression has grown stronger in the east, including in the controlled Donbas and in the south.
According to the poll, the society is dominated by a sympathetic attitude toward residents of the separate areas of Donetsk and Luhansk regions temporarily uncontrolled by Ukraine. 40% think people are victims of personal or family circumstances. Another 9% consider them hostages of the illegal armed groups.
They are not guilty of what is happening there. The territories are occupied. They are hostages of the situation.
I think they are hostages of circumstance. Experts believe it indicates that all Russia's efforts to undermine the situation in Ukraine and divide people have failed. We also consider them hostages there, and we would like them to come and stay here. We are introducing projects that are designed, for instance, to attract young people from those territories to higher educational institutions of Ukraine, by making this process as simple as possible. At the same time, 18% of respondents agreed to any compromises in order to resolve the situation along the contact line, and 46% are ready to concede only on some issues. Reported by Vadim Kramer and Yulia Bardish, UATV News.
Aggression against Ukraine cost Russia $500 billion. This was stated by the Russian opposition politician and former member of the State Duma of the Russian Federation, Dmitry Gudkov. He says capital and investment outflow sanctions and various enterprises' profit loss due to the occupation of Crimea and the invasion in Donbas. Russia, in fact, found itself in global isolation, Gudkov emphasized in an interview with Deutsche Welle. At the same time, ordinary citizens of the Russian Federation also feel losses due to the Kremlin's policies. Their incomes have decreased by about a third over the past 7 years. Attraction of investments and development of the region as instruments of the-occupation. The International Investment Forum Southern Development Strategy is held in Kherson region in the south of Ukraine. More than 500 participants, leaders of the territorial communities, representatives of executive authorities and diplomatic missions took part in it. Permanent representative of the President of Ukraine in the Autonomous Republic of Crimea, Anton Koronevich, told why the development of the south of the country is so important now.
European integration is not only loud words, but in fact it means the life of each of our citizens. Plus, as you know, in our strategy for the occupation and reintegration of the temporarily occupied territory of the Autonomous Republic of Crimea and the city of Sevastopol, we stated that one of the instruments for the occupation and reintegration of Crimea is the social and economic development of territories adjacent to the temporarily occupied Crimea. Therefore, it is very logical that this event is held here and we are talking about the development of the south of Ukraine.
Forum participants also discussed countering Russian propaganda in the occupied Crimea. First Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, Emine Dzhaparova, urged the authorities to pay special attention to this issue and the regions on the border of the occupied Crimea. Unfortunately, the propaganda in schools and universities is very serious, and the Russian Federation is investing billions of dollars in order to form another consciousness of the new generation that is growing in Crimea. And for us, this is a strategic direction, which we also have to think over. Therefore, attention to the topic of Crimea, the resource of the topic of Crimea pulls up the resource and attention of the region that borders on Crimea. On June 7th, a new forum dedicated to the environmental issues within the framework of the Ukraine 30 project has begun in Kiev. On the first day of the event, President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky said that he sets a global task, that is to plant 1 billion trees in the country within the next 3 years. The participants of the forum have also paid attention to the reduction of harmful emissions from industrial enterprises. A bill on the introduction of large taxes on CO2 emissions has already been submitted to the parliament. This should push the plant owners to install air filters.
We need to find a balance. It is probably wrong that someone pollutes air and avoids responsibility by investing money into infrastructure. But at the same time, not letting them work is also wrong. One can't find enough money in the budget to rebuild the city. Metallurgists and owners are big businesses. They need to understand that it is impossible to pollute air without any sanctions. In turn, the city should communicate with metallurgy. Like, who do we build new roads for if the drivers fall ill with cancer, for instance, later?
Only 6% of waste in Ukraine is sent for recycling. This is very little in comparison with the countries of the European Union. This was also discussed by the participants of the Ukraine 30 Ecology Forum. Our correspondents found out about the situation with the waste management and recycling.
Only 6% of waste is sent for recycling in Ukraine. The rest is either incinerated or sent to landfills. But in the EU member states, this figure reaches 90%. In order for Ukraine to achieve similar results, we need to approve a law on waste management. The document is set to create a closed waste recycling system in Ukraine. Enterprises to deal with the disposal of garbage will be created. Resources for reuse in production will be made from it. Here is an example of recycling, the glasses. They are made of coffee. They are stylish and environmentally friendly. So how were they created?
These are the first glasses made from coffee. The frame and the case are completely made of coffee. If you smell them, they smell like coffee. There are several coffee shops in Kiev with which we cooperate. We take the used coffee components, cake, flax and polymer. The polymer is made on the basis of vegetable oils. All this is mixed and under the press, the shape is formed. A frame is cut out on 3D machine.
Some countries are even procuring garbage abroad in order to recycle it into raw materials for their industries. Besides, recycling has a positive impact not only on the environment, but also on the economy, officials say. And the MPs plan to fully approve the law on waste management till the end of summer. Reported by Vadim Kromer and Artem Holub, UATV News.
The forum participants also discussed the possibility of restoration of the destroyed ecosystems and the occupied territories. The government emphasizes that now, according to international humanitarian law, only the occupying country is responsible for everything that happens in the occupied territory. For example, in the Russian-occupied Crimea, the situation with water supply is deteriorating. However, Ukraine has all the opportunities to solve all the existing environmental problems, but only after the occupation.
екосистем Криму.
As for the restoration of Crimea's ecosystems after the occupation, it is difficult to assess what losses the Crimean ecosystem will bear. If the water supply is restored, a short period of time will be needed to completely restore the ecosystem. Moreover, it is also necessary to mention the illegal mining in the peninsula and excessive air pollution by the Crimean titanium enterprise.
Besides, the occupying authorities of Crimea are preparing a lawsuit against Ukraine. Due to the cessation of water supplies to the peninsula, the so-called authorities of Crimea are planning to request the Russian Ministry of Justice to apply to the European Court of Human Rights. Whether such claims have any prospects and how is the damage caused to the ecology of Crimea by the occupation authorities assessed, our journalists found out.
Severe drought and scheduled water supply. Since last year, the situation with water supply in the occupied Crimea has become critical. Due to the small amount of precipitation, the water level in the reservoirs of the peninsula dropped to minimum. But the reason is not only blocking of the supply of the Dnipro water through the North Crimean Canal.
The current situation with access to water for civilians is caused by the actions of the occupying authorities of the Russian Federation. The first is the increase of the military staff and the militarization of the peninsula and the development of various infrastructure projects related to the militarization of the peninsula, which require water.
Politicians and environmental experts consider the lawsuits by the occupation authorities to the European authorities as political statements only and do not believe in their prospects. This story is very strange. For instance, imagine your personal car was stolen, and then the car thieves complain that it doesn't work. If a state believes that it has the right to violate the borders of other states, to annex lands, seize territories, it is not just incorrect, it's just strange to sue that sanctions are being applied against you. Environmentalists note that the so-called authorities of Crimea extract water from underground sources, and this has already led to soil salinization in the peninsula. But the greatest harm to the Crimean nature was caused by the construction of the Tavrida highway, along which the relic forests are systematically destroyed. The construction of the Kerch bridge has also damaged the underwater ecosystems a lot. In fact, this bridge is a dam with a small cut for the passage of ships. Because of this, the Sea of Azov starts turning into a swamp. That is, it actually becomes a swamp with fresh water. Ukraine used to cover about 85% of Crimea's needs for fresh water. It was supplied through the North Crimean Canal. Water supplies to the peninsula were stopped after the occupation of Crimea by Russia in 2014. The Ukrainian side has repeatedly stated that Crimea will receive water only after complete deoccupation. Reported by Vadim Kramer and Svetlana Sich, UATV News.
Ukraine entered a green quarantine zone. The number of those who fell ill with COVID-19 is 5 times less than of those who recovered. The coronavirus pandemic in the country is on the decline. The ban on holding public events, the work of nightclubs, has been lifted, and when entering the country, one can show an international certificate of vaccination. As of June 11th, the number of daily cases of COVID-19 in Ukraine made 1,603 persons. What is the reason for these dynamics? Should we expect a new wave of the pandemic? Our correspondents know more.
The number of COVID departments in the country will be reduced to 257 units. By the end of May, only a quarter of beds for such patients with coronavirus were occupied. According to the Ministry of Health, due to decrease in the incidence rate, hospitals will be redesigned to provide the planned medical care. More than half of the hospitals in Kyiv region have returned to normal operation.
The numbers are actually decreasing, and we do not have those terrible thousands and hundreds of deaths which unfortunately were registered even a month and a half ago. I had 6 calls last night. We can pay high-quality attention to each patient. We can cure this patient and save the most important thing, their lives.
Nevertheless, immunologist Fedor Lapi associates the decrease in the incidence rate with the seasonal behavior of the virus. In the warm season it weakens, and he advises to stay ready for the next wave of the pandemic. We are repeating the 2020 summer season when the number of cases decreased, but we need to prepare for autumn, during which an increase in the number of cases of COVID-19 is likely to occur. The Chinese CoronaVac vaccine, which is used to immunize Ukrainians, has been approved by the World Health Organization. According to the Minister of Health of Ukraine, Viktor Lyashko, this will allow issuing an international vaccination certificate to everyone who has completed a full course of this drug.
When they introduce the certificates, then people will understand that it is really the way to Europe, so to say.
According to the Minister of Health, up to 4 million doses of COVID-19 vaccine will be delivered to Ukraine by the end of June from different manufacturers. All of them are purchased for budgetary funds or obtained within the framework of the international COVAX initiative. Reported by Vadim Kramer and Olena Diduch, UATV News.
In July, Ukrainians will be able to get an analog of the EU-COVID certificate. The document has been developed. In the meantime, Ukraine is issuing an international vaccination record. Both documents are valid for traveling abroad. The record includes only data on vaccination, while the certificate would include negative PCR test results or marks of recovery. An international vaccination record is issued in any Ukrainian medical institution connected to healthy system.
Якщо ви щеплені 2 дозами вакцини,
If you're vaccinated with 2 doses of COVID-19 vaccine, you can get an international vaccination record from your doctor. This is a Ukrainian document on vaccinations that complies with international health regulations. Therefore, if you need a document now, you can get this international vaccination record in paper form. June is marked worldwide as Pride Month. Equality marches are held in different countries of the world. This year, the march in Ukraine was postponed till September due to the pandemic. In turn, the Kharkiv Pride Hub is getting ready for the event. How organizers are fighting for their rights, our journalists know.
Sisters Vera and Nadia Chernigin are among the organizers of the Kharkiv LGBT+ community. Both girls came out to their parents only 3 years ago, and parents accepted their position.
они как-то видели, знаешь, по телеку.
They saw on TV how we participated in Kyiv Pride and called to say that it is a shame for them. We had a lot of arguments talking about who we are. Well, it happened so that we're both lesbians and we're happy.
Vera Chernigina has been the head of the Sphere Women's Organization for 13 years. She formed it together with like-minded women. And 3 years ago, she opened a Pride Hub in Kharkiv, where they conduct lectures, trainings and master classes for representatives of the LGBT+ community. The hub has been repeatedly attacked by homophobes and radicals. Once the exit was blocked, then more than 100 people were inside.
Мы не могли открыть этот замок.
We could not open the lock. We had to wait for the police. At that time, 3 persons were bleeding from their noses. We wrote a statement that there were victims and again there were no elements of crime. More than 22 attacks happened only over the past 2 years.
Despite the attacks, representatives of the Women's Association held an equality march in Kharkiv in 2019. The local authorities wanted to ban the action, but the activists were supported by the international community. Letters came from diplomats from Great Britain, Canada and the United States.
Мы не ожидали, что придет столько много людей.
We did not expect that so many people would come. About 5,000 people came. They came from other cities to support us.
Equality marches are held annually in June around the world to protect the rights of minorities all over the world. However, in 2020, due to the pandemic, mass events were cancelled. Then a rainbow motor rally took place in Kharkiv.
Чем чаще, тем лучше.
The more we talk about ourselves, the more people will get used to the fact that we exist. We will not go anywhere. The more they beat us, we will defend ourselves more, grow and develop, so they won't be able to stop us. We will never stop.
This year, due to the pandemic, the Equality March in Ukraine was postponed till September. Now the girls are actively preparing for the event. Reported by Vadim Kramer and Natalia Bilokudria, UATV News.
150 cultural heritage sites will be restored within the big restoration program in the next 3 years. This was announced by Minister of Culture and Information Policy of Ukraine. In 2021, the ministry plans to carry out work in the Kiev-Pechersk Lavra Monastery, St. Sophia Cathedral in Kiev, the Kachanivka Reserve, and in the National Art Museum of Ukraine. More than $74 million have been allocated for the implementation of the program this year.
Це мають бути знакові об'єкти.
These should be symbolic objects that are in critical condition now. At the same time, they can increase the number of visitors. Those sites are likely to become tourist attractions, and some of them are on the UNESCO list.
That's all for this week. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned. More updates on our official website, YouTube, and Facebook pages.